Up here,
Oh, wow.
that one there. Yeah, because we're going to go to the new campus. But this is the original New Britain Teachers College, which is now Central Connecticut State University. I'm going to show you the house where Aunt Mittie, the eldest of the Timmons progeny, lived from Grandma Patsy's oldest daughter, who is now deceased. But Melvin was there last night. Melvin is the son of Aunt Mittie Timmons Purdy Richardson. 82 Prospect Street.
Whose house is this?
This is Aunt Mittie Timmons Purdy Richardson's house. We now have, for the very first time, a black principal of the school. Mr. Chambers. I forgot what his first name is. And the trees kind of cover New Britain. This is Britain High. No, Electro Hub, but New Britain High there. Stadium, the football stadium over there. And Lisa had a lot to do with Youth Commission, maybe when they were naming this other, the Rockettes, signed a contract with Hartford, the city of Hartford, to move the Rockettes there. So there's a lot of controversy that's going on because they're leaving without paying their taxes to Berlin, which also owns a part of this. New Britain and Berlin, I think, own. I have been invited. I told you I was invited to visit after school when I was in first grade. We didn't have kindergarten back then. When we were in first grade, one of my classmates invited me to come home to play with her after school, and I was so excited. And I came home with her. We played, and then I started home down the street, right? And my mother met me, and boy, she gave me a good little spanking, and she said, "Don't you ever do that again." And I didn't know what I had done wrong. I never bothered about asking my mother and father if I could go and play with. I didn't know you were supposed to ask permission. And I think she just asked me after school, and I just, on a whim, I just went ahead with her. My mother and father would let me walk with the dog over to the stores. And they weren't, it wasn't any fear of your child being taken or anything like that. I don't think that anybody really thought that much about that. And this was the very first area we lived in when we came, and our house was probably over there, and Grandma Patsy's house was probably over here. And they were like the, what do you call, like one, a row kind of house, I guess, and you had the living room and the little kitchenette and the bedroom in the back part of it. But the brickyard was down here, and that's where my father first started to work, was down in the brickyard. I don't remember the name of that brickyard, but also from here, Grandma Patsy would, during the summer, she would prepare sandwiches and Kool-Aid, sweet potato pies. She put them in the basket, or in the different baskets, and she would have us walk with her just before the whistle would blow for noontime, and we'd go down and take the baskets of food, and Grandma Patsy would sell to the men who were working in the brickyard there. So she really was the innovator. Here's the train coming. She was an innovator for these vending trucks that they have now. We had Footmobile. They have they have the regular mobile units that they take out now. Patrick Henry and myself with my mother, Agnes Timmons, and my father, James Timmons. Patrick was with Grandma Patsy Henry Timmons, Wanza. And then she had with her, it was Uncle Herbie that was there last night, Aunt Catherine, Aunt Alberta. It was the three of them. Aunt Matt, I think, stayed here a while. This used to be the library, the Berlin Library, but they've changed it to a historical society now. So we would walk up here. We'd walk up here to go to school, but we also, my mother and I would walk up this way to come to church. This is the Catholic church where I was baptized, St. Paul's Church. And that house was where my dance teacher, the ballet teacher for the school, she lived in it. Miss Kelly, I think her name was. Where Father Graylish lived. They've changed that, I think. I don't know. I don't think it's the rectory anymore. In memory of the unborn. No, we took that. Oh. And when I came out of college, or when I was coming out of college, this school was being built. And because Father Graylish had paid, you know, he would send me money for college and all, and he had paid my way through St. Joseph's School in New Britain. I offered to teach here when the school was finished, and Father said to me, no. He said, go teach in the public schools where you're going to be able to make more money. So. Okay, so this is the beginning part, Kensington. Factory right there, New Britain Machine. That was where my mother worked, my uncle worked there. Many of the blacks came to work in the factories here in New Britain. New Britain is the, or it was the hardware city of the world. So just about anything you had in your house was made here in New Britain. Hello, my name is Jimmy Elizabeth Timmons Nkanoki Ward. The name Jimmy was given to me by my father, who said that no matter whether it was a boy or girl, the child was going to be named after him. So I have Jimmy. His name was James, and of course the nickname is Jimmy. I didn't get Jimmy as a nickname. I got it as my regular name. And the Elizabeth comes to me from my mother and also from great-grandmother, I believe, you know, on my mother's side. All right, this is James I. Delbert Timmons, my father, who was born in Wakulla, Florida. And this is a picture of him when he was a bellhop at one of the hotels in Tallahassee, Florida. And this gentleman was quite an entrepreneur. All right, down in Tallahassee, he was a bellhop. And he said during the 1929 Depression that he was able to come home with like $500 a night because of his ability to, you know, just go ahead and... So the gentleman who owned the business really took a liking to my father, and he allowed my father to take his truck after work hours. And my father began to deliver loam to various people, and he started his own landscape and gardening company. That was one. Then my father bought a bus, and that bus, he took the seats out of it. He made it into a rolling store, right? He was also one who bought and sold property. He renovated houses. He had a fish market. Oh, the fish market story. My father walked into the fish market on Hartford Avenue in New Britain, Connecticut. The gentleman who owned the place asked my father if he would like to have a fish market. My father said, sure. The man gave him the keys and walked out. He had another fish market that he opened in Meriden, Connecticut. And then he had one on North Street in New Britain. And my father always kept his trucks, so he would go from town to town selling fresh vegetables and fresh fish and fresh fruit. All right, so he was quite an entrepreneur, and that's who taught Lisa, my first two children, Lisa and Jonathan, how to do business. In here also is a photo of my mother. Oh, this is kind of ragtag, but my mother, my father, and myself. And this is when we were in Tallahassee, when I was just a little tyke before my mother brought me up here to New Britain. This is my Aunt Mattie, who was the first operatic singer in the family. I was really motivated by her to go on and to become an opera singer, other than Mrs. Linger. And here you have a photo of my father and myself in the little, what do you call it, carriage. And this is on St. Augustine Street in Tallahassee, Florida. I was born on St. Augustine Street. This is a photo of my mother and me on St. Augustine Street in Tallahassee, Florida. Myself, this is Jimmy Elizabeth Timmons when she was about a year and a half old down in Tallahassee, Florida. And I think this is maybe the only photo that was taken of Patrick with his mother in Tallahassee. I'm not sure, but it's the only one that I know of. Here's Patrick, and there's myself. We're the same age, and one of our little friends. Now, Annabelle Timmons Henry, she died up here at a very early age. Patrick and his brother Lloyd were just small at the time. She died in Waterbury. I guess he's David Patrick Henry, but we always called him Patrick Henry. He was born in September 1935, September 12th, 1935, and I was born in November of 1935. So, well, with Patrick coming home after the almost 40 years, it was a time when we thought, you know, we should call family members together that have not seen him. And also, we have so many family members that...
Oh, she was like a sister to me. She would write me letters while I was in the service. I loved her mother's biscuits. Yeah, her mother used to put sugar in her biscuits. I'd eat over her house once in a while, and I missed, missed the biscuits. But mostly talking to her, you know, on the telephone and so on. We always kept in contact. Okay, my name is Patrick David Henry. Well, for 42 years, they've been trying to get me here from Wichita Falls, Texas. And finally, I made up my mind to come home. Oh, well, it's my brother, my sister-in-law, my cousins, mostly my cousins, and my aunts. I haven't seen them in a long time, and I kind of miss them because we haven't, you know, there's some that's in the rest home, and those are the ones I really want to see. Oh, well, when I got retired from the Air Force, I came out as a department store manager for Best Products. They had stores all over the United States. And I started in Wichita Falls, and they moved me to Dallas for about, a year or so. And I used to communicate back and forth from Dallas to Wichita Falls, where my family was, you know. So they closed all their stores, and I ended up back in Wichita Falls, where I was a project manager for handicapped people, finding them jobs and everything, you know. And I was there for about 25 years. I don't remember a thing about this photo. I don't know who this is. I don't know me or anybody else on this photo. That's for sure. And I'm anxious to find out who it is. I just don't remember what she looked like, really. So I hope she's saying this was my mother. While I joined the service in 1953, and we took basic up at on on the other side of Plattsburgh. And it was really cold up there, I'm telling you. You wake up in the morning and the water in the butt cans was frozen. And from there, I went to California, where we took basic and some other field training. And from there, went to, well, I came back home for a little leave before I went to Okinawa. And from Okinawa, I went to, stayed in Okinawa about 18 months. Then came back to the United States, went to Westoverfield, behind Westoverfield, where they kept atomic weapons, you know, because Westoverfield was a SAC, Strategic Air Command, and that's who usually does all the bombing places. Before they used to do it. I don't know if they do it now or not. And, excuse me, from Stony Brook, went to McGuire Air Force Base, where I worked in customs for a while. And when I left McGuire, I went to the Azores, which is in between Europe and the United States. It's an island that always had earthquakes. I really wanted to get off that island. From there, I went to Japan. Stayed there 4 years. And while I was in Japan, had a chance to go to Vietnam again in 1960. When I went to Okinawa, we had a base commander. Now, it was segregated. The whites would go to one town, blacks were supposed to go to the other town. And that was by commander's order, base commander's orders. So one night they put the black area off limits, and everybody went up to the white area. And about 3 people got killed that night. And that base commander, he was from Georgia. And they brought a new commander in, and he told us, he said, you go any place you want to on this island. Don't go to town with your fist balled or anything in your pocket. And pretty soon, everybody was just getting along together. Majority of the family here today, they helped take care of me when I was growing up. They more or less kept me out of trouble while I was going to school. And like I said, if you haven't seen them in 42 years, it's going to take a long time. But like as far as Jimmy's concerned, you know, we call her Jimmy. You know? We've always been connected. You know, she, like I said, she wrote to me, and when I came back from overseas, she called me and everything. You know, we speak about once a month or something like that. You know, and yeah, it's nice getting back, especially for the people. You know, to see the people that's in the nursing home right now, and because they did a lot for me. I'm gonna put it this way: I grew up mostly on my own because I went in the service at 17, and when you get in the service among older people, you grow up fast. And I contribute any success I do have on myself. You know, I was able to stay out of jail and lead a life that I was supposed to lead. And God took care of me, that's for sure. Because I went to Vietnam for about 2 months and got transferred to Korea. And we had an assignment which was scary, you know. And I was, you know, when you get in a situation like that, you do a lot of prayer, you know, to take care of me. So I contribute everything to the Lord, you know. It's because I've been in situations where I should be dead today. That's right. As an example, I shouldn't tell you this, but see, one of the jobs I had in Japan was very easy. And I go to Tokyo at night and party and come back early in the morning. Well, this particular day, see, they drive on the left-hand side of the street. And I had a 52 Dodge over there. And I was on my way back to the base, and I fell asleep. And I woke up just in time to swerve to keep from hitting the back of this pickup truck. And all it did was knock the chrome off the side of my car on the door. And you better believe I thank God that night. 'Cause, I left while my brother was growing up. The only thing I can remember is we used to go to Berlin. We lived on Hartford Avenue. And we used to walk to Berlin to go fishing. And sometimes when he got tired, I carried him on my back all the way back to Hartford Avenue. And he's about the only, other than the other relatives, the uncles and aunts, you know, he's about the only one that I really came to see, almost, you know, because we never really had that brother-brother relationship, because I'm 7 or 8 years older than he is. And when he was going to school, I was in the service. See? So we were never together to grow up.
Lloyd Henry. My brother, he's always been one of my best friends. We had a wonderful life, and gee, what can I say about my brother? I love him. And we haven't been together that often. Sorry. All I can say is I'm happy he's here. I love my brother, Pat. It's been a long time since I saw him. It's been about 20 years or so, and we met down in Florida. It was an auspicious occasion, but nevertheless, we met and were together for a few weeks. This was back in the 70s, I believe. It's been a while since I've seen him, but we've always kept contact with each other. And when we didn't, we sort of knew each other was all right. But we really haven't been together in our adult life that much. We've sort of loved each other from a distance. He was in the service when I was a teenager. And he spent his career in the service, and but we always kept in touch with each other. Always told our hopes and dreams. I really never verbalized how I felt about him, you know. But all I can say is it's good to be with him presently. He came up from Texas, and him and his granddaughter, and we had a bond because we lost our mother at an early age. Matter of fact, my cousin Jimmy just showed me a picture of her. Sort of like, at a younger age, he always took care of me. And the whole family did, matter of fact. Even though he was away most of the time, overseas or whatever, he kept in contact with me. Showed me how to, a lot of cases, I would be happy when he did come home. He'd give me some of his clothes, even though they didn't fit me. I was proud of the clothes he gave me, and I'd sport them around and wear them out, matter of fact. It's fabulous. I wish it could have happened a long time ago, but it's happening now, and I feel great. All week since he's been here, I feel wonderful. Feel like we never had been apart. But family, in order for society to operate correctly, I think families have to stay together, and the family structure is what makes the world go around, to be honest with you. To me, even if everyone doesn't think or believe the same thing in the family, your relatives, myself, to me, you're still family. I still love you. Our family has, I wouldn't say been split up, but some parts of the family are doing their thing, and some parts are doing their thing. And thing about it is, something like this is when somebody made the call, we all came together.
Herbert Wanza Jr. I remember Jimmy. Her name is Elizabeth Timmons. I haven't been around my family in years now. I guess we got big and spread out. We never had a real get-together. But we used to, every year, we used to have some kind of cookout or some kind of dinner or something together. But as the family grew older and each one had children and got farther and farther away, we stopped doing it. For no apparent reason, we just stopped. It just one of these things that just stopped. No, just happy to be here, and hope we can continue to do it on a yearly basis every year, so we can get to know each other all over again. Because really, we used to when I was a kid coming up, we were a close-knit family, and every holiday or something, all the family was at somebody's house, you know. But as the family started growing bigger and farther away, it became an impossibility. But it's thinking back to the times now that most of the kids that were kids are grown and got kids, so they can manage to bring their kids. Okay.
My mother was Mittie Timmons Purdy Richardson. That was my mom. She was the oldest in the family. Matter of fact, yesterday would have been her birthday. And what else could I tell you about the family? Sometimes we as family distance ourselves, but I feel in my heart and in my mind that we're living in a time where family is very important. We need one another more and more in this time, maybe than we did back there, because we all are beginning to get a little older now. We're even beginning to get a little bit more wiser, having a little bit more understanding of what family really means. And myself being saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost, it even gives me a more of a drive to bring the family together, to forget about our differences, because you believe one thing and this one believes something else. We have to separate that. And today is a very special day because I haven't seen Pat since I was, I'm going to say, 6 years old, at least 6 years old. And he looks the same to me, and I can picture him coming in his uniform, because he was in the Air Force. We have to recognize each other. There's so much history and so much love that should be together. I can remember I said something at my aunt's funeral, Pearl, that as a family we need to come together, not just at sad times, but we need to come together all the time. Every chance and every opportunity we get, we should come. We have, I believe, would be the next oldest would be Uncle Herb. I think he would be the oldest one living now. I believe he's the oldest one living now. And realizing that he was sick, but when he came in, he said, "Hi, Mel, how you doing?" He knew who I was. So that put joy in my heart to know that he still had that much of a comprehension of where he was and who he was around. And that's something very special. And the only way that we can keep our older family members with that kind of mind is if we stay in their presence. For the longest, I didn't know any better. And I don't want to say it was by accident that I found out, but we all grew up together. Like I said, 3 months, from 3 months until now, this is the family that I know. This is the family that raised me. This is the family I grew up with. These are the cousins that we played and fought and everything together. See why you want to bring that up? See, I was going to leave that out of this. If one got a whipping, the other one got one too. So, but we had our uncle, Jimmy Timmons. He used to always call me Virginia Kid. I don't know, always call me Virginia Kid, and I never knew why he would call me Virginia Kid. Until one day I found out that's where I was born, in Virginia. So, this is the only family I know. And I'm the only Melvin they know. Melvin Purdy. I'm the only one they know. And we don't even discuss it.
For this gathering, we thank you for all those who have assembled with us together today, who have come from near and far for the sole purpose of honoring our family. Family is something that you ordained in your word, and you know that it is the basis for society. We thank you for gathering each person together today that came from distance, and we trust that on their leaving you will provide protection on their way home. We want to thank Cousin Liz here, who had the inspiration to put this together and how well it came together. And we want you to keep your arms of protection around us at this time. These are all things we do ask and pray in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Alfred Bingham Jr. I am the oldest son of Annie Lee Bingham, who is the oldest daughter of Pearl Baker Williams, who is the daughter of Patsy Wanza. Patsy Wanza is the matriarch of this clan, as we know it here. The gentleman Herbert, who I asked about earlier, he's her son, and so that was my great-great-grandmother, and that's as far as I know in this line. I know there's beyond that, but they're doing that research now. But she was the oldest. She was the senior person in the family when I was growing up. I knew her as a very strong woman. All of the women in this family are very strong women. She came up from Florida with her family in the 40s, and they all migrated from Florida, from Tallahassee, from Wacala area, and they had been down there working on farm and doing that type of thing, moved up north, and got working in around New Britain and Newington and the Berlin area, and that's what established this part of our family in the north. That's how society has extended itself through the family. But I can remember we were very close as young people. We were very close families. I mean, we would have Thanksgivings and Christmases. We would always be visiting one another's houses. We'd have 2 or 3 of the families would come together, and we'd cook and bring food over, and it'd just be like one big thing where all this food, man. And that was one of the memories I have of Thanksgiving, which is bad to say now looking back on it. I would eat until I hurt myself. And that was, for years, that's what Thanksgiving was to me. I mean, if you didn't, go back and eat and just have your fill, and then come back and have the dessert and the pie and the whole nine, and that to me was Thanksgiving. And so but it was some really good times, and some of the times were lean times too, but just we did have family, and I mean that was something that we could lean back on, was family, because we many of us have achieved much more than we had back then, but there were lean times, but we were able to hang on until we achieved better times, and that's through the strength of family.
There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. And there's an answer if you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will disappear. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, for you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you'll finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. The dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone tear them away. Hold on, 'cause there will be tomorrows, and in time you'll find a way. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, 'cause you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you'll finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. You know that a hero lies in you.
Roger W. Douglas Jr. Oh, this is a welcome surprise. I haven't seen my cousin Pat in 38 or 40 years, and him and Lloyd, his brother Lloyd, are my idols. Everybody else, you kind of grow apart a little bit, because I haven't seen a lot of people here. I haven't seen. This is the first time I'm seeing them, actually, that are my cousins. This is the first time I'm seeing them. But we got a long lineage. We go back a long way. Well, like I said, once again, this is great, because I've seen cousins. I've met new cousins, and I've seen cousins that I haven't seen in years, because everybody's been married, got kids, and this and that. So it's been a separation for a long time. And a lot of my first cousins, they were little kids the last time I saw them, which was like maybe late 70s, early 80s. So, it's been a while since I've seen all these people, which was great.
My name is J.N. Kanoki. Family, great memories, certainly motivation to live, to do well, to set a good example, to be proud. Fortunately, we have a great, rich family tradition, family history. Well, certainly the family unit, the team unit, everyone does well together. Each one teach one. You're as good as your weakest link. Same thing in the family unit. Not everybody's perfect, but together you can accomplish tremendous things. And certainly the family has shown us, the elders have shown us in our family that, first of all, anything's possible. And I really like that about our family history, is that our history internally shows us that anything truly is possible. When you look across the spectrum of our family, there are successful people in every walk of life, and success certainly has a broad definition, but part of that definition for me is being successful at raising a good, respectful, quality family, which so many of our family members have done. And one of the great things about family and friends, whether you've seen them a week ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago, that bond, that chemistry is still there. So family is certainly extremely special. And hopefully we'll get a chance, as we see these additional generations coming along, it's nice to introduce the newer generation to the older generation, as well as, I know it's special for the older generation also, from a different perspective, to not only catch up with those that are of the same age group, but it's also rewarding. The older we get, the more we appreciate the new generation that's going to carry on the legacy of the family. So certainly great to get together, and hopefully we continue to do so.
My name's Joe Ward, Joseph Ward. And your family always comes first because that's what everybody looks for when they want to know about you, or they want to know anything about you. The first thing is they want to know your family history, where you come from, who you are, and that's who you are, your family. And that determines what a person thinks about you all the time when they ask you your name. You've got to make the name mean something. You've got to live up to the expectation of the name, even more. You've got to keep it going. A good name means more than money. If you got a good name, you can always get money. That will lead to money. And most of all, you want your kids, your grandkids, and you want everybody in your family to know that they've got to uphold the name. They've got to let that name shine. And whereabout that no one can distract you from wherever you're trying to go. Because if you don't know who you are, then most people can take advantage of you.
I want to congratulate him also on behalf of the state of Connecticut legislators. All right, congratulations, Patrick. Hello, my name is Jimmy Elizabeth Timmons Nkanoki Ward. The name Jimmy was given to me by my father, who said that no matter whether it was a boy or girl, the child was going to be named after him. So I have Jimmy. His name was James, and of course the nickname is Jimmy. I didn't get Jimmy as a nickname. I got it as my regular name. And the Elizabeth comes to me from my mother and also from great-grandmother, I believe, on my mother's side. All right, I was born in Tallahassee, Florida, and at the age of, I think it was like going on 2 years of age, when my mother brought me to Waterbury, Connecticut to stay with her and my Aunt Mittie. Aunt Mittie seemed to be the gateway for everyone in the family coming to Connecticut from Florida. My father came afterwards, and it seemed that he also was one that was a lead person for the family, because he would spot places for each of them to be able to live. And our first place after Waterbury was Kensington, Connecticut. And next door to where we lived was a house where my father's mother and his brothers and sister came to live, and cousins as well. My mother said to me one of the reasons that she wanted to bring me to Connecticut was to make sure that I could get an excellent education because of the segregation down south. And she did a pretty good job of choosing that, she and my father, because my education began at Kensington Grammar School, and from there we moved to New Britain. And when we moved to New Britain, the school that I was sent to was St. Joseph's School, a private school. And I found out, I have to tell you a little story about Grandma Jessie, because Grandma Jessie and great-grandmother Virginia McDowell Irby Riles great-grandmother was born in Charleston, South Carolina. But when they came up here to Connecticut, great-grandmother was blind, all right? And Grandma Jessie took care of her. But Grandma Jessie was just such a dedicated grandmother, because my father would not let me go to any activities at school unless I had an adult to go with me. And he didn't want my mother to go anyplace, so that meant that if my mother didn't go with me, I'd have to stay home. But my grandmother said, I'll go with her. Now, my grandmother lived downtown, way downtown. And on winter nights, cold winter nights, my grandmother used to walk all the way from the apartment where they lived on Myrtle Street, all the way down to Main Street, the lower end, so that she could meet me at the bus stop, get me off the bus, walk me down to St. Joseph's School, deposit me there, and then walk back to the drugstore and wait for me until the activity was over. And usually some of the kids were walking that way. And then Grandma would put me back on the bus to home, and then she would walk back home. So, I mean, I can never, ever forget the love that she had and the caring that she had to make sure that I got to take part in activities at school. I graduated from college in 1958, after a year out of college. I graduated in 1958, and I was able to get the job in Hamden, Connecticut. One of the reasons I was accepted at Danbury State College was also to test, as far as jobs were concerned, if it was going to be difficult or if it was going to be easy enough to get an African American hired as a music teacher in Connecticut. And I had an offer for a job in East Orange, New Jersey, and I was kind of looking forward to that. But then when I came back, the offer for the job in Connecticut was waiting for me. And I did take that job, and it was in Hamden, Connecticut. The job was to start at Michael Whalen Junior High School as the general music and vocal teacher. And they decided just before school opened that they would move me from that school, which I never got a chance to go in to teach. They moved me to the brand new school, Sleeping Giant Junior High School. And I became the general music and vocal teacher at Sleeping Giant Junior High School. So there was proof that I was marketable, and it kind of opened doors for others. Although New Britain and Hartford, only a couple of instances there. The one instance was a little girl said something, I think she used the N-word. I've forgotten how that was, but that was in New Britain. But it was, I've just gotten to the point where I know what the N-word means, and it's not necessarily that it has to do with color. The word Niger, from the Niger people, the Niger River and all. I mean, I look at it on a very intellectual level, and I had some fellows who were passing me in their truck one day, and the fellows were saying the N-word a couple of times. I rolled my window up and I said to myself, you don't even know what the word means. So I was like, you're not even fazing me in the least. But in Hartford, there was a student who wrote to me years after I had her. She found me on the internet, Elena Jitarakis. Elena found me on the internet, and she wrote me, and she told me that she was sort of in awe of how I was able to kind of keep myself together when one of the students in the class had said something. I don't even remember the student. I don't remember his saying anything, but I think I must have gone into a spiel to try to educate him and the rest of the children too. So it was like, you're not fazing me, doesn't really go here to my heart or anything. I'm here to teach you, and that's what I'm going to do. But that was the only other instance, right in Hartford, and also once in New Britain. All right, number one, I told you I went to Catholic school. all right? Catholic school, number one, when an adult entered the room, you stood up out of respect, okay? So I wanted to make sure that I carried that on with all of my students. I found that, my mother would always tell me, what was proper to do, because when you're out with the, out with the students, the elites and all, you need to know what fork to use. And the teachers that I had also, they would instill that in us. When I started teaching at the college, I found that many of the students didn't know anything about etiquette. The manners, fellows stand when a young lady, enters the room or comes over near you. And I told them how my boss, Charles Jones, CJ, my boss was seated in the cafeteria over at the university. And it was all men that was with him. And immediately when I walked over to the table, all of them stood up. And I thought, these are truly gentlemen. They have been trained the right way. And I always tell my students, go through. The girls would, I would have them stand. And in the, modeling school, they taught us to stand and make sure that the backs of your legs are touching the chair before you sit down. And then you sit, you put your thumbs and you sit. And then you lift yourself back on the seat. You cross your ankles. And then you fold your hands and make sure that you are sitting up straight. We were always taught to sit up straight too, all right? So I go through that whole thing with the young ladies and with the fellows. I say, it's easy for you because all you have to do is just stand, but you stand straight and you sit. And you make sure that you sit with a nice straight back. You don't slouch at any time, all right? So we go through that exercise, and students come back to me and they say, they have found it to be very, very helpful. The other thing too, we practice going in and out of doors, like for interviews, that you don't turn your back. If you're going out of the door, your back is turned, but you turn around and you do your goodbyes to the person and thank you and all, And the handle of the door, it is that there's a certain way that you open the door and close it. You close it behind you, facing, rather than turning your back when you're closing a door. Instead of turning your back to close that door, well, the one thing that I would like our African American community to know, and also my students, having been the first African American student that was accepted and graduated from Danbury State College, I just am happy to know that my students, most of the students with whom I come in contact, that they feel that it was beneficial for them to have even been my student. And I hear them, I said I wanted to be on stage, to sing on stage. Well, being a teacher is being on stage every single moment that you're in the classroom. So I had that chance to be on stage, but also to impart to my students the wonderful kinds of things that I felt they needed to know and that they needed to learn to have successful lives.